Hi, my name is Cody Ardondo, and today I'm going to talk to you about my fiscal policy to keep us from hitting another Great Recession. First of all, we need to understand what happened. When looking at who contributed to the Great Recession, I'm looking at the biggest cause, which is the housing crisis. Now, that uh, a big part of that was due to bills signed by Jimmy Carter and Bill Clinton that expanded uh, the unsustainable bubble with a little bit of help from Mr. Alan Greenspan. The consequences here were an incredibly crippled economy with huge spike in unemployment. Huge amounts of debt were accrued by citizens and the government, and industries such as housing and construction saw some pretty bad damage. The crisis, while it was felt around the world, the greatest effect was obviously here in the United States, felt by the citizens and government alike, as well as industries such as manufacturing and the financial industry were hurt as well. Um, when when you're looking at the housing bubble, you could see when it started growing out of control in the early 2000s until the pop in 2007, leading into 2008. These problems were allowed to exist because of a massive government overreach, getting into the housing industry where they don't belong, where where the market should be in charge. There's also crony capitalism because you have people lobbying to get the government to sign these bills so that they can make money off of it. And along with that, obviously, is just the overall greed of the situation. Uh, Now, the government's response to the recession, firstly, you saw the Economic Stimulus Act of 2008, which was designed to increase the money supply and give some more income to the citizens that they could put back into the economy. That didn't work out, obviously, so well because we were still really hurting, so they tried it again. And, well, some say it worked, some say it didn't. It really depends on who you ask. Oddly enough, they used some contractionary fiscal policies with some tax increases, such as the end of social security tax cuts, uh, tax increases from the fiscal cliff and the Affordable Care Act, and the whole sequester deal that was so lovely to see. Um, Now, when you look at the success, really depends on who you ask if this was successful or not. Because if you ask Wall Street, they'll say, of course, because they saw record profits, record numbers. But if you ask the regular citizen off the street, they'll probably say not so much because there's still massive amounts of debt and the unemployment rate was still a lot higher than it should have been. Uh, Now, as far as my plan, first of all, I aim to help the citizens. Uh, I will do that by firstly ending the federal income tax because it is just not necessary, and it will allow citizens a higher amount of disposable income. Now, that money can be used to strengthen the market through that citizen spending rather than the government trying to prop it up and creating a more natural, strong economy. I replace the federal income tax with a consumption tax because let's face it, our government is so bloated right now that we can't just take away all that income. It has to be slowly wound down. So, in order to keep the government going for a little bit longer, this would be a flat tax on all the goods purchased in order to, like I said, fund our federal government. Um, Now, when you look at the federal income tax, over half of the citizens eligible don't even pay the federal income tax. This consumption tax broadens the taxpayer base while being less of a burden than the income tax. It will get everybody in the tax paying. And also, I would reinstate the payroll tax cut because again, that would put more money back in the pockets of the citizens that they can strengthen the market and it will pump up our economy and give it a much more stable base. Now, this diagram shows exactly what I plan for my policy to do. With these tax cuts, such as the income tax cut, it will create, like I said, there will be more money in the pocket, so it will create a greater demand of goods, which will increase price levels and our real GDP. Now, the real meat of my plans comes in tax cuts for businesses. Most people are not fans of these things, but let me allow me to talk to you about this because it's very important. I would eliminate the capital gains tax because everybody knows that investment is the lifeblood of our economy. You don't have investment, you really don't have businesses. Um, Now, cutting this tax creates an incentive for those who have the money and ability to invest to go ahead and invest their money in businesses and the economy without a good chunk being taken away by the government. Now, more investment will mean more jobs and it will give a boost to the overall economy. Like I said, stability. That's what we're going for. That's what this will create. Uh, Ending the corporate income tax is another one of my plans. This will lead to yet again an increase in jobs as well as a boost to the wages, which I'm sure everybody would love to see. Um, this is more of a sustainable economic growth uh, than than what we have seen through government intervention, because this needs no propping up by the government. It's natural. It's letting the market do its work, and there's going to be no devaluation of the currency. Uh, there'll be more money to invest in the economy rather than forcing businesses to spend that money trying to comply with the ridiculous tax codes. Um, as I said, this will create a healthy, stable economy with a more solid foundation to stand on, which is key to preventing another Great Recession. Uh, Now, as you look at this diagram, you see exactly what I mean, because you cut these taxes and they're going to create more jobs, which will have the labor demand slide to the right, pushing down the unemployment rate and pushing up the wages, which is great for everybody. When it comes to government spending, let's face it, some of us like myself would like to cut just about everything, but I digress. I will start with retracting the military presence and taking some of the money away from there to put in more needed places, which I'll get to in a moment. Uh, if we go with a less imperialistic policy, which spends on defense rather than offense and nation building and all that fun stuff, it will save us trillions and trillions of much needed dollars in the long run by cutting this unnecessary spending, which also puts us in harm's way. This kind of military spending that we currently have is just absolutely not sustainable and is more of a detriment to our economy than almost anything else right now. Now, as I said, I would take this money saved and put it other places, as in an increase in domestic spending. So we take the savings from the military cuts and we throw it into areas of need in our country rather than other countries. Spending more on infrastructure and creating more jobs and strengthening the economy in general by putting the money towards things like infrastructure. Now, overall, these fiscal policies that I have set forth are designed to achieve three main goals. Stability. We need stability to prevent us from slipping into a Great Recession, because if you don't have a stable economy, you have it propped up on this or you have it propped up on that, um, things can pop at any moment and drive us further and further down and possibly into even another Great Depression. We need to have an economy that is built through investment in businesses. Build it through the market rather than through the government. Uh, Another goal is high output and low unemployment. With all these tax cuts, we'll be creating more jobs, and with incentives such as uh, cutting the capital gains tax and things like that, will create a more efficient and profitable economy. Lastly, I'm looking to create a steadily growing economy rather than a boom or bust economy, which happens with these bubbles, such as the housing bubble. Um, it's a naturally growing. It's not out of control. It's stable, and it is like I said, a sustained and stable rate of growth is exactly what we need to see to keep a firm balance on our economy, rather than trying to get things off the chart and then we will fall greatly off the map that way. Uh, Thank you very much.